let's give folks another maybe 30 seconds or so, and then we will kick off. Okay. So while we're waiting for folks to come in, very excited to have Scooter on the call with us today. Scooter, thank you so much for joining, and thank you to everybody for joining today on driving AI adoption at enterprise scale through the HR team. I wanted to take just 30 seconds to start with something that I hear a lot from people leaders is they've built a function, they've got a high functioning team, and they've got a roadmap, but most weeks they are still feeling pretty reactive. I think, Scooter, that's one of the things that we kind of started our conversations with. And between all that reactive work, somewhere along the way, the strategic work kind of gets a little bit buried. And at the same time, we're all getting told to do something with AI. So there's kind of that top-down pressure too. And if you're running a people function, it's actually not that simple because there's also your day job to do. So very excited to have Scooter on the call, who is going to share with us what it really looks like from the inside to kind of rethink that model, and to talk about how, Scooter, you implemented AI from within the HR function in applied systems. So I guess, Scooter, just to start with, you tell us a little bit about you. When did you join Applied, what your role is, and what were you looking to bring?
Yeah, absolutely. And great to be here today. So I'll give you a quick background of myself and Applied. So I joined Applied about a year ago, heading up our people operations and compensation teams. Prior to Applied, I've been working primarily in high growth startups in the Bay Area for the past 15 or so years. For folks that may not know Applied is a 43-year-old software business selling software into the insurance industry, a very, very large and established business. And really kind of our goal was to help modernize how we were operating from a people operations perspective. And that's one of the reasons I joined Applied, to kind of help us with that evolution. And it's been a fun journey so far over the past year or so.
Nice. Thanks, Scooter. Before we kind of get into the details, what was the kind of the state of the people ops model when you joined, and how did you kind of know that something needed to change?
Yeah, when I first joined Applied, one of the things that I was hearing from the team a lot is that we needed a better kind of tool to help us manage how we were doing our work day to day. The team was working out of a shared Outlook inbox, which I think was fine when we had a much smaller company, but as we kind of scaled, it made it very hard to understand what folks are working on, what were the main drivers of our workload, how we were tracking work being completed. And that was causing, a lot of frustration on the team. We were also answering the same kind of questions over and over again, and wanted to give folks kind of the ability to better kind of self-serve how they're finding knowledge and having their questions answered. So really, we heard from the team a desire to have a more modern kind of workflow in place and a better way to kind of help them manage their day-to-day operations outside of using a shared inbox, which was not a very effective way for them to be managing their day-to-day work.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is we've seen other folks, at least pre-AI or early AI, that the common way of solving this was like, we'll just add one more person, whether that is someone to be able to just pull that data to see what's working, what's not working, or just add another person to be able to handle that inbox. But you and the team saw it kind of differently, and you did do something different. So what was kind of the internal signals and the internal conversations that said, actually, wait, we can't just add another person, and actually we need something else to be able to solve for this?
I think for us, it was a couple main things. So one was just the Applied keeps growing and scaling. We've also been acquiring companies kind of globally, so just a lot of kind of overall employee headcount growth. But we have to kind of keep our people operations team, fairly lean, just given the state of the world and the business and everything going on with AI. And really wanted to find kind of two things that we're trying to solve for. So one was trying to find a way to better track our work with more of a kind of, we'll call it back-end ticketing system. And then second, really trying to find a way to let employees better self-serve. And instead of the team answering, the same question 40 times a day, having a tool answer those questions for them. And we felt like instead of adding more people headcount, adding a software solution was a much better way to kind of approach this challenge, both to solve the challenge of tracking workflow as well as enabling employees to kind of self-serve and find answers to their questions in a much more sustainable and kind of faster model. So those are kind of the two challenges we're trying to solve by finding a good software tool for this.
Yeah, gotcha. And that actually sounds like it required a more of a restructuring of how people ops work actually happens, because as soon as you allow employees to self-serve, suddenly it sounds like actually the work itself changes. So it'll be good to get kind of a high-level summary before we dive into the details of like what do you think had to change beyond the tools? What is it, like a mental model shift? Was it something else? How did you bring people along on that journey in the team?
I think it was a couple things. I think it was one, folks being okay with like letting go of some of their day-to-day work and being okay with letting AI answer a lot of the questions that were coming on a day-to-day basis. And then two, I think just adjusting to operating out of a more structured process and a more structured ticketing system and being able to kind of see what was going on day to day. I thought folks would be worried about that and push back, but honestly, everyone really liked it. I think being able to see, everything coming in, what's being assigned to you, where the work stands, being able to pass it off if you need help. I think that level of visibility is really helpful for the team. So I think for the folks actually doing this work day to day, they really have enjoyed having a better tool and process. And we really haven't gotten that much pushback for them as they've seen kind of the benefits of having a tool like this and a better kind of operating rhythm and structure in place for them.
Nice. And I'd love to hear thoughts, folks, on the webinar today. So if you do have any questions, by the way, drop it into the chat and we'll get those answered. And if we don't have a chance to cover your questions, then we'll follow up with you afterwards. And there's going to be the call recording, of course. You'll also see a poll that'll come up around your own AI usage. So again, we'd love to hear your thoughts there. So if anything interesting comes up, just drop us a note, and Scooter and I will bring those along. And Scooter, I guess in that kind of change management piece within your own team, there's also kind of this push, right, of like, okay, you want to drive change in your team, why not just build something yourself? And you had to kind of push for like a more of a purpose-built solution that would give the team a foundation to accelerate from. How did you make that case? And kind of like what actually got the skeptics, let's say, on board?
Yeah, I think we definitely tried to think about building our own tool using whether it's Claude or Rover or other AI solutions out there. I think it's actually quite hard though for the HR space. One thing that I learned through this process is it's really important to, one, have really good knowledge that you are feeding into these tools, but also being able to really control how the information is being fed to employees or being served to employees. And I think with kind of self-built tools at the enterprise scale, that is actually quite a challenging problem to solve without having a tool to kind of help you kind of manage that. So I think internally, after folks saw that this is actually pretty challenging, and just building in internal AI solutions may not be the best approach, because we want to make sure we have really good quality of our answers and we're giving employees the right information. And without a kind of a tool to help us manage that, it's really hard to ensure high quality. So that was, I think, a big selling point for us, really focusing on like providing really good quality to our team members or employees. And we feel like that was better served through an external tool versus trying to build something ourselves.
Gotcha. And you mentioned kind of Rover earlier, and typically something like Jira has been primarily like IT focused, but they do offer kind of that self-serve ability, and I believe you can also plug it into Slack. What didn't quite work for you guys there? Was it like yes, there's a maintainability, but was there also a push for better employee experience, or was it more that you needed something that was more specific to the people team? What was kind of the push to really look outside?
Yeah, I would say maybe two things. I think one is we wanted a tool that kind of people team owned end to end. I think when you're trying to have a solution like this, really trying to maintain control is important, so you can ensure that it's doing exactly kind of what you want the tool to do. And then two is just accuracy. I think from for an HR tool, it's really important that you're providing the right responses, call it more than 90% of the time. And what we saw with some tools like Rovo is that's actually hard to achieve those kind of numbers. At least that was in our cases what we saw. So really trying to provide a great employee experience and one that is delivering, the right answers almost all the time was kind of a big push for us. And we felt like Kinfolk was kind of the right solution for us to ensure that we are providing great employee experience and serving kind of the right answers, as I mentioned, almost all of the time.
Gotcha. And that kind of leads me to the next thing, which is that the tooling is only one part of it. There's kind of the rollout and making sure you bring people along in the journey.
Yep.
And for us, we took our time to build that kind of confidence. And someone on your team, Emily, was fantastic, and Jenny and Marsha, they all rallied around this. Would love to kind of hear you share with the folks listening in of how you structured that rollout, like the pilot group, the phasing, the checkpoints that made it through applied systems with confidence.
Yeah. And I think that kind of approach was a big key to our success in kind of launching Kinfolk. So just for kind of folks' context, we probably spent about 2 months, maybe 2.5 months kind of building out our knowledge base, ensuring we had all the right documentation in place, ensuring that everything from like a content perspective or knowledge perspective was up to date and accurate. We then did about, I think it was a 2-week period of time doing a lot of internal testing with our people team. So trying to ensure that folks across the global team had a chance to ask questions to Kinfolk, to give us updates when things were not giving the right answers, and kind of making corrections as needed to our overall knowledge base. And then we decided to do kind of a 2-week pilot testing to about 20% of the North American team. Really trying to ensure that folks are having a great experience before we launch to the broader North America team. I think kind of doing it in those phases makes the launch a little bit less scary to folks, because you have a chance to kind of correct things as you're going and make adjustments as you're launching the tool. And I do think that because we had a team so focused on this, we're able to drive change pretty quickly. And we still have a team that spends at least part of their day ensuring that Kinfolk's operating as we would like and making kind of adjustments as needed. But that's getting easier over time. I think that phased approach was a really good way for us to kind of roll this out, and kind of got buy-in from the broader business that this was going to be a good phased approach, and we're going to address any challenges as they come up and kind of course correct as needed early on in the process.
Yeah, it was kind of iterative, and I really love the way how you guys kind of brought on folks little by little and build confidence that way. Now that's obviously within the broader people teams. There was benefits, and there was other folks in there too. At what point did you bring in your IT counterpart? At what point was it the right time for you? And if you do it differently, how would you do it differently, if at all?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. We actually started engaging our IT team and our information security team probably last fall. So even before we kind of officially signed the contract to kind of move forward. And I think bringing them in early on is really important, and ensuring they feel good about the tool and have a chance to do their due diligence is critical. So I would definitely encourage folks to bring in their IT partners as soon as possible and try to understand any objections or concerns up front, and then put in place kind of a plan to address them kind of early on in the process, to avoid kind of any challenges that may come up kind of down the road if you kind of get ahead of them kind of upfront in the process.
And how did you bring the IT folks along the journey to say, hey, we do actually need something that's more specific to our function? And how did you build that confidence? Any tips for folks listening in?
I think just engaging early, trying to make sure they understand, what is the business case, trying to make sure they understand kind of what are the problems you're trying to solve, and why existing tooling may not be the right use case. I think tools like Jira are great for certain use cases, but I think for us, it just wasn't the best solution. So I would just, encourage folks to engage them early on and try to, bring them along the journey, and just be kind of transparent about things, and just try to engage kind of as early and as often as you can be my advice.
Nice. It's been a handful of months now since you have brought those folks along in the journey and we've launched, and it'd be interesting to kind of hear what's it been like running this in practice, for your team and for the employees, because we are starting to deflect a sizable amount. So what does the team's day-to-day now look like?
Yeah, so kind of for folks' context, our goal when we launched Kinfolk was to deflect about half of the questions coming in to our Slack bot. We've been live now, I think, for a little over 2 months now, and we're seeing a deflection rate of, I think last time I checked was around 88%. So that's pretty incredible. We're seeing CSAT scores of like 4.8 or something around there. So really high kind of customer satisfaction scores. And that is, I think, given the team time to focus more on more strategic initiatives. So, thinking about ways to improve our onboarding process, thinking about ways to improve how we are going to approach open enrollment. So the more strategic initiatives, the people operations team. And I think that's also just giving them, time back in their day. So they don't have to answer the same question over and over again. They can focus on the more complex questions now, or things that need more of the human involvement. And I think for our employees, our team members, they're getting much faster answers. Instead of waiting, 5 hours, 8 hours, 2 days for a response, they get an answer in real time. And that also saves them a lot of time, as well as just mental load, not having to wait for a response. So for us, it's been, really good first 2 months. And we've been very, very pleased with kind of the results during the first couple months so far.
Great. So we talked about the good stuff. Let's talk about the maybe more messy parts. Where did you face kind of the most resistance? Was it within your team? Was it a mental model shift? Was it leadership? Was it another department? Was it from employees? Which area kind of required the most work to get you to where you are today?
I'd probably put it into maybe three main buckets. So I think one is, initially, I think from the IT teams, I think they want to understand how it works and ensure that it's secure, which is great. And that is definitely their job. So I think ensuring that folks understand, how the tool operates is really important. I think two, for us, as we went to connect our knowledge, we had some challenges because some of our knowledge sources were in different places, and some of them we couldn't connect. So we had to do some manual adds to Kinfolk to get the right knowledge into the platform. So those were kind of, I think, two challenges. I think third was from the team itself, just kind of wanting to understand, how it's going to work, how will it work, moving to operating in a ticketing system. For us, because we had been receiving most of our work through emails, kind of shifting to receiving the question through Slack has been an adjustment for us. And thinking about how to, over time, phase out using an email distro as kind of our intake has been a challenge, but we've kind of worked through it. So I think overall it has gone well, but there certainly have been challenges along the way that we've had to kind of work through and find solutions for as we've gotten this tool launched out to our North American team members.
Yeah, and there's always kind of a gap between what AI promises, whether it's between you and I, or whether it's other folks that are bringing AI tools forward, between what they say they can do and what you actually have to do to make it work inside the organization. It sounds like you're saying that kind of the knowledge cleanup was the biggest gap for you. Would you say that's right, or was there other things that actually were like, hey, didn't quite see this, and that was more of a gap that slowed you down?
I think the knowledge cleanup was certainly a challenge. I think folks may not always understand, although while AI is amazing and has definitely changed all of our lives, if you're feeding it bad data or bad information, it's going to serve bad results. So I think really ensuring that it's it has the right information to read from, that you've thought about how to connect things correctly and thoughtfully is really important. So for us, that was a good amount of work. And then just, I think, changing folks' behavior. So, with a tool like Kinfolk, if questions come through Slack, that's a much better setup for the AI to answer versus everything coming through email. So I think for us, shifting from email intake to having folks ask questions through Slack has been a change as well. I think many folks like that change because they live in Slack all day long. Some folks maybe don't. So just kind of, directing them to use Slack more and more has been a change process for us. But I think overall, we've made a lot of progress in really trying to drive, almost everything through Slack now versus coming through email has been, it's been a change for us, but it's going well.
Good. And now we're kind of starting to scratch the agentic workflows side of things. And that obviously comes with a whole new set of questions around, hey, what do our current processes look like? Would you have phased it any differently? Like, would you have started with agentic workflows earlier? or not? How does that kind of fit into the current launch plan?
Um, I'm not sure I would have started it earlier. I think that it is really important to think about, like, what is your longer term goal? And as you look out 1 or 2 years, where do you want to have agents in the mix and have agentic workflows in the mix, as well as thinking about, how does that work with your HRIS system? So Applied is using UKG as our HRIS, really ensuring you're thinking about how to connect into a tool like UKG and the different modules that it has, and thinking about where it makes sense to use agents versus having folks maybe self-serve in UKG. I think it's an important thing to think about. But I think for us, it was kind of good to get the tool out there, get it set up as our ticketing system as well as our kind of AI chatbot, and then kind of in phase 2 thinking about how to build in agentic workflows. But I think for us, we phased it the right way, and then excited to kind of see us, added more agentic workflows in the coming months and quarters ahead here.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where that goes. I'd love to hear a little bit back on kind of the more pleasing stories. What are some of your favorite stories or examples that you've kind of heard either from the team or like those delight moments from the employees that are giving you those signals beyond the data that yes, this is directionally in the right way?
Yeah, I mean, from our team, I won't share the exact team, but I heard someone say in a team meeting last week that, they were skeptical at first. This would actually help them and save them time. And now they feel like they've gotten time back in their day. And, for teams that are so busy and stretched so thin, even if you give them, 10% back in their day or 15% back in their day to do other things, that really helps. And I think folks may not always realize, how much time they're spending answering, we'll call them day-to-day routine questions, so they don't have to do it anymore. So I think for us, that's been, a huge win. And then for team members, being able to get real-time answers. So we've heard from folks that they're so happy that they get answers so quickly. They don't have to wait now, a day to get a response. And that I think has just, been a much better experience for our team members. So I think, we definitely have seen wins on both sides, our team as well as our team members. And I think the data supports that. So the fact that we're deflecting so many questions, that our CSAT score is so high, has shown that, it's been an effective tool so far, but certainly, one we have to keep improving and building on over time.
Gotcha. And to get to that stage, you guys, of course, put in a bunch of work to kind of get to that ready stage. Before we even got to the agentic workflows, which we're exploring now, there's improving that knowledge. Yep. But then there's also kind of like how long do you wait until you do launch? Because the world moves on and there's expectations even from employees, and there's pressure perhaps from IT and your leadership peers to bring in AI. So like what was ready for you? Like what was the minimum viable conditions that you felt you needed before you started to look outside or to seriously start to engage vendors?
I think it's two things. I think one is just a team mindset that it's never going to be perfect. And even, with our team members every single day, we're also never perfect. So while that is the goal, we can't aim for 100% accuracy. So that was kind of part of our operating model of like, let's get to good and then launch and iterate. So we were trying to get to around kind of an 85% confidence level that we were ready to launch. And once we kind of got to that 85% confidence level, let's just get the tool out there. Let's get feedback. Let's iterate and make improvements. And really trying to move to kind of a product operating mentality of, get the product out there. Let's hear feedback. Let's make iterations and improvements, but let's not wait too long. So that was kind of how we approached it, kind of an 85% confidence level. And I think that mental model helped us be more ready to launch, knowing that we don't have to be 100% right, just close to that. And then we can make improvements and changes as we kind of learn and start using the tool over time.
How did you gauge that 85%? Was it like a score, or was it more of a qualitative, like, hey, how do we feel about this?
I think it was more of like, how do we feel about this? And we did have we had a working group on this project. We had daily check-ins and would do like Slack polls on how folks felt from like a confidence level. And that kind of helped us gauge our readiness to launch the tool.
Yeah. And it sounds like trying to wait until things are perfect is one of the things that we should probably try and avoid. From speaking with your peers, are there any other let's call them mistakes or things that are getting in the way of them launching something like an AI solution within the business? Or is there something that you're seeing your peers do that they're almost doing it too quickly that's leading to an unsuccessful launch?
I think that folks don't always think about scoping the problem they're trying to solve. And I think it can be easy to say, well, let's just have AI go do that for us. I hear that all the time. That's great. I think it's great for folks to experiment with AI. Things are changing so fast that we all learn new things every day on the AI front. I do think that when you're trying to launch a tool to many thousands of people, it's important to think about what is the business case you're trying to solve and what do you want this tool to achieve, and trying to find the right solution to help you make that happen. And if you're trying to use Claude to hack things, that can be, I think, quite challenging for enterprise for a variety of fronts. So yeah, really thinking about what is the problem you're trying to solve, what is the right tooling, and finding the right partner I think is really helpful. Be kind of my advice and my recommendation. Nice.
Let's look ahead a little bit. What do you feel the people operations function looks like we were talking about planning out agents for the next couple of years. What do you think the people operations function looks like in kind of 3 years' time if this shift towards not even just answering questions but agentic workflows continue?
I think honestly, 3 years is a hard time window. I think because things change so fast right now, even projecting out a year is, I think challenging, to be honest. But I think, my mind's a couple of things. I definitely think we'll see AI more and more embedded in all of our workflows. And for people operations teams, they'll become, I think, leaner teams that are more strategic and really using AI to help us think about the overall employee experience, how we do workforce planning, analytics, trying to solve complex business problems. I think we'll really need AI to help us there. And then thinking about, where do we want humans in the mix? Where do we want AI agents in the mix? How do we design those workflows? I think will be really important. And I think it's such an exciting time. AI tools are moving so fast, constantly changing. I think the best teams will find ways to use AI to handle the day-to-day work, to help them with generating insights and kind of scaling support, and trying to find the right ways to embed people in that workflow as well. But yeah, I think it's a very exciting time to be in the people space right now. So much change is going on, but overall, yeah, great time to be working in people and people operations.
Yeah, and we're only a part of the AI transformation that you're seeing in the people team. How are you kind of maintaining that momentum, and how are you maintaining that kind of cadence of building that trust with other team members, with other departments, to make sure that you continue that shift where humans are not doing the repetitive administrative tasks and you're bringing in the right tools? Is there like a operating model change, weekly cadence, something like that?
Yeah, for the people team, we have kind of a weekly or bi-weekly cadence, thinking about how can we drive improvements in how we're using Kinfolk. For other teams, like what are the challenges they're trying to solve, and what are the right AI tools to kind of help them solve those challenges, and just trying to think about how to phase in the work. There's obviously so much you could do with AI, thinking about just how you segment, I think is important, and not taking on too much at once, and really trying to deliver great results versus trying to do too much at once, just given all that you can do with AI and all the cool tools that are out there. But that's kind of how we've approached it.
Yeah. And are you kind of thinking about redefining some of the skill sets of when you're like, hey, we got to hire differently? When does that hiring come in? Have those conversations kicked in already?
We are thinking about starting in our technology teams. What are the most important AI competencies, hiring folks that are kind of AI first, or, heavily using AI in their workflows. And then over time, layering that into our performance evaluation process, and really trying to ensure that folks are effectively using AI in their day-to-day to become more effective. But I would say we're kind of early to mid stage in that journey, but I think it'll be really important, in the coming months and years ahead here.
Thanks, Scooter. Yeah, it sounds like nobody here is pretending that HR becomes fully automated. If anything, it sounds like you're wanting to dial up the human elements of the role by using AI for the more mundane stuff. And it sounds like, actually, from what you're saying, is that partial automation is a strategy, and not being fully perfect before launching is actually the right way to go, because then you can use data to be able to inform your next step. And I guess that the other thing that really came to mind is that there is an operating model shift of what the team are now doing with their time. And you have those bi-weeklies or every 2 weeks in terms of how they can use AI even further in their role. We've actually had one question come through directly with this kind of operating model shift, which I just want to talk about. Have you heard questions around like automations making people's roles redundant? and if so, kind of how did you handle those objections?
Yeah, I think there's definitely always that concern about, what does AI mean for my role? And I think for us, it's kind of a couple things. I think it's one, being honest with folks that it's important that everyone uses AI. And the folks that do not use AI in the day-to-day will probably be left behind, in this AI transformation generally. I think too, it's kind of showing folks, if you had more time in your day, what else could you do? And helping folks, work on larger projects where maybe in the past they didn't have time to do that. So I think it's kind of a two-step of like helping folks understand what else they can do as they have more free time and, what they're excited about. And then two, just giving folks the right tools to use AI and learn and kind of really trying to drive a mindset of constant growth and learning. I think is really important, given how much things are changing and how much you can learn with AI in everyone's kind of day-to-day workflows.
Are you guys using ChatGPT or Claude or those kind of tools generally? Does that a Copilot or something like that come through?
We have a mix. Yep, we have a mix of kind of Copilot and Claude. So it's a mix across the teams, and we're doing a lot of work on kind of giving folks training to use those tools effectively, given there's so much to learn and things are, changing on a almost daily basis now.
Yeah, and I asked that question because I want to tee up the next one that's come through from someone, which is that with so many AI tools on the market, sorry folks, yes, we are one of those. How did you avoid kind of tool sprawl, particularly as you have like Copilot, and you mentioned there's a mix, it's not just Copilot, right? Like, so how do you avoid kind of that tool sprawl and make sure that each solution that you either bring in or you build internally has a clear role and there isn't too much overlap?
So I'll be honest, the people team at Applied is not fully kind of own that decision. I think that is a challenge though. And I do think that when you have folks on different tooling, it can be hard. I think that different tools are good for different use cases. At Applied, I think because we're mostly a Microsoft organization, having Copilot built into all of your applications can be quite helpful. And it's from I think a user perspective, it can be more seamless. I think on the Claude perspective, Claude is a very powerful tool. I use it probably 4 or 5 hours a day now, and just everything it can do it's amazing. But I think, thinking about, what is your strategy? What tools do you want to have in place? Trying to, if you can get folks on the same tool, I think is important. Just given it's hard to, if you're building, artifacts or other things, ChatGPT, trying to share those is hard if everyone's not on the same tooling. So thinking about, what is your broader plan early on, I think is important, and trying to, where you can, condense tooling, I think is really a good idea, just to be managing and using kind of less tooling kind of across the organization.
Yeah, we hear this a lot of like, these tools are really good for perhaps personal productivity, but then it kind of hits a blocker of like, well, how do I then scale this productivity across the team? Because even with Claude, you have skills, and it's going to be way better if you can have the skill that's then shared. You mentioned that you're spending 4 or 5 hours a day on Claude. As a leader, what are you spending your tokens and time on? Yeah.
That's a good question. So I think it's a couple of things. I think one is, thinking about strategy. So I think tools like Claude or ChatGPT are really good to help you think about, what is the team strategy? What should it be? Here's a draft of my thinking. Please give me feedback and kind of poke holes in it. Using it to put together things like PowerPoints. I use it a lot in Excel now, so helping me, do different things in Excel sheets. So I think there's just so much it can do. And once you start using it in your workflows, it just kind of takes over, I would say. So I always encourage folks just to play around, test it, see where it can help them be more effective. And I think these tools are so powerful. There's so many ways you can use them to help you be more effective and I think happier in your day-to-day work.
Love it. We got a couple of minutes or so left. So Scooter, I'll hand it over to you. Any kind of final thoughts or tips for folks that are listening in on their journey for AI transformation that you think that you'd want to share that they should know?
I think I mentioned this. I would just really think about, what are the problems you're trying to solve, and, thinking about the right solutions to help solve those problems, and trying not to take on too much at once, and kind of solve things little by little in a, strategic way, and finding the right AI tools to help with, the challenges you're trying to solve. Be kind of my advice. And there's so much to do. I wouldn't be worried about not starting off. I would just get going and kind of improve and iterate over time as you start using these tools and finding the right solutions and use cases.
Yeah, and it sounds like also creating space for your team, like you mentioned, the cadence, because otherwise what we hear often is like, well, I also have my day job, so like, how does this fit in? And it sounds like the reframe is not like this is an addition to your day job, but it's like a reframe of the day job and infusing it to the point where you're spending 4 or 5 hours of your day on it, by the sounds of things.
Absolutely, totally agree with that.
Awesome. Well, we are at time, so let's wrap things up, folks. Scooter, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us. If anybody wants to pick up the conversation with you, Scooter, where's the best place to reach you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, and always happy to connect with folks.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks all.